There's an uncomfortable truth that few people talk about, and it's this: sometimes you get exactly what you wanted, and yet you still feel empty. Yes, you worked hard, you endured difficult nights, you gave it your all when no one was watching. You made sacrifices, you left things behind, you fought like a warrior, and one day you made it. But something didn't feel the way you imagined it would, because you thought that once you got there, you'd finally feel like you were enough, that once you had money, respect, results, recognition, stability, or that goal you've been chasing for years, the emptiness would disappear. But it didn't disappear, and then a scary question pops up: what now? Because often we aren't chasing a dream, we're chasing a feeling, the feeling of being valuable, the feeling of proving something to the world, or perhaps to ourselves. And listen to this carefully: there's nothing wrong with wanting to grow, don't lose hope, God still has the final say. There's nothing wrong with wanting more, there's nothing wrong with wanting to win. The problem begins when you turn your goal into your identity, when you stop saying, "I want to achieve this," and start saying, "If I don't achieve this, I'm worthless." That's where the prison begins, because you're no longer walking out of passion, you're surviving out of obligation. You no longer enjoy the process, now you're carrying the weight. You no longer say, "I have the opportunity," now you say, "I have to do it." And that difference destroys people, because physical exhaustion can be overcome, but the exhaustion of the soul, that inner silence where you feel something has broken inside you, weighs differently. Maybe you're there today. You keep moving forward but no longer feel joy. You keep fighting but something inside you is exhausted, and no one notices because you keep functioning, you keep smiling, you keep putting on a front, but inside, you're tired. And maybe what you need isn't to give up. Maybe what you need is to ask yourself an uncomfortable question: do I still love this, or am I just afraid to let it go? Because there are dreams that were born out of love, but over time were hijacked by fear: fear of losing, fear of disappointing, fear of starting over, fear of discovering who you are without the title, without that goal, without that recognition. But listen closely to this: your worth was never in the outcome, never. Your worth was in the person you became while you were fighting, in the discipline you developed, in the tears no one saw, in the times you got back up when you were broken, in the days when no one believed in you and yet you kept going. Because true growth doesn't happen when you win, it happens when you discover what you're capable of while you're fighting. Sometimes life allows for certain silences, certain pauses, and certain losses, not to destroy you, but so that you can once again listen to that deep voice that reminds you that you were born for
something greater than just surviving. And maybe, just maybe, you're not as lost as you think. Perhaps you're being redirected, perhaps you're learning that success without peace weighs too heavily. Perhaps you're discovering that not everything that glitters fulfills you, and that doesn't mean you've failed, it means you're waking up. Don't be afraid to reevaluate your life. Don't be afraid to ask difficult questions. Don't be afraid to admit, "This isn't good for me anymore." Because sometimes the bravest act isn't to keep running. Sometimes the bravest act is to stop. Look yourself in the eye and ask, am I living, or am I just chasing? Remember this: you weren't born just to achieve goals. You were born to become strong, self-aware, and whole along the way. So, if you feel empty today, it doesn't mean you've reached the end. It means something inside you is asking to evolve, and perhaps your next, better version begins right after this crisis. If you decide today not to give up, show it, leave a like and subscribe. Change begins now. Don't feed your doubts, feed your mind. Subscribe and give this a like. Let me tell you something that maybe no one has ever told you to your face. Your worth doesn't depend on your results. It doesn't depend on how much money you have. It doesn't depend on applause. It doesn't depend on how many people admire you. It doesn't depend on your position, recognition, fame, business, body, or even your victories. But we live in a world that tries to convince you otherwise, a world that makes you believe you only matter when you produce, that you're only enough when you win, that you're only worth something when you prove yourself, and slowly, without realizing it, you start to build an identity based on results. You start thinking, when I achieve this, I'll feel complete. When I reach this, I'll feel at peace. When I get there, I'll finally be somebody. But listen to this very carefully. There are people who achieved everything they dreamed of and yet still feel broken. Because the problem was never the goal, the problem was the emptiness they started with. And no trophy can fill a weary heart, no amount of money can heal a shattered mind. And no recognition can give you a peace that you haven't built within yourself. Perhaps you've lived like this too, working non-stop, proving to the world that you're strong, trying to win, trying to move forward, but secretly carrying a question that haunts you. What if I'm never enough? And that question hurts because it forces you to try harder, to compare yourself more, to punish yourself more. You become a slave to an idealized version of yourself. You never rest, never celebrate, never acknowledge yourself, because no matter how much progress you make, it always seems like too little, and that's how many people end up destroying themselves. Not because they're weak, but because they confused performance with identity. They believed they were the result, that if they failed, they were a failure, that if they lost their worth. But listen to me carefully. Failing at something doesn't mean you're a failure. Losing doesn't make you any less. Falling doesn't define you. Having doubts doesn't make you incapable. And you don't need to be broken to deserve a fresh start. Look back for a moment. Think about everything you've survived, the difficult nights, the rejections, the disappointments, the times when you thought you wouldn't make it, and yet here you are, breathing, fighting, trying. Do you think that's not worth anything? Of course it is. It's worth a great deal, because there's a strength inside you that you haven't fully discovered yet. A strength that emerges precisely when everything seems to be falling apart. And maybe life never meant to teach you to depend on the outcome. Maybe it was trying to teach you something much deeper. How to build yourself from within. Because there are moments when everything on the outside falls apart, so you can discover who you are when you no longer have anything to boast about. And in those strange silences of life, when it seems like everything is growing dark, sometimes you can sense that there's still an invisible direction, a calm that's hard to explain. As if something greater were still pushing you not to give up. You're not too late, you're not finished. And you're not any less valuable just because you haven't yet reached where you dreamed of going. Stop talking to yourself like an enemy. Stop punishing yourself for not being where you imagined you'd be. There are times when growing up doesn't seem like progress, but you're changing, and even if you can't see it yet, you're becoming someone stronger. You're not your bank account. You're not your followers, you're not your physical appearance, you're not your mistakes, you're not your failures. And you're not your victories either. You're the person who keeps getting back up when it would be easier to give up. Your life so stop by results, because the strongest people aren't the ones who always win. They're the ones who learn to keep moving forward even while they're still finding themselves. And listen to this before you go. Don't wait until you feel good enough to start believing in yourself. Start believing in yourself, and little by little, you'll discover that there was always something valuable inside you. There's a stage in life that no one teaches you how to face. The stage where you wake up and no longer know exactly who you are. The stage where something inside you has changed, where the things that used to excite you no longer feel the same, where motivation disappears, where even what you loved seems like a burden. And the worst part isn't being tired, the worst part is feeling lost. God still welcomes broken hearts, because when you lose your way, you start to question everything. Your purpose, your decisions, your dreams, your direction. You even start to ask yourself, am I wasting my life? And that question weighs heavily, very heavily indeed. Because you see others moving forward. You see people who seem so sure of themselves. You see people achieving things, and you feel like you're stuck, as if everyone knows where they're going except you. But listen to this carefully. Losing your way doesn't mean losing your life. Sometimes it simply means you've grown, and what used to work no longer works for the person you're becoming. That hurts, because it forces you to let go of old versions of yourself. It forces you to give up habits, beliefs, goals, even identities. And let's be honest, letting go is scary. Because at least the familiar made you feel safe, even if it was draining you, even if it was slowly extinguishing your spark. Many people continue living lives they no longer love simply because they're afraid to start over, afraid of disappointing others, afraid of failing, afraid of seeming confused. But let me tell you something important. There's nothing shameful about rebuilding yourself. What would be shameful is staying in a place that destroys you just because you've grown accustomed to the pain. Sometimes getting lost is necessary. Yes, necessary, because when everything seems to fall apart, you start asking questions you've never asked yourself before. What do I really want? What makes me feel alive? What am I doing just to impress others? What part of myself have I been ignoring for years? And that's where something powerful begins, not when you find all the answers, but when you have the courage to ask yourself the right questions. Maybe today you don't have clarity. Maybe today you don't know what to do. Maybe you feel confused, drained, unfocused, unmotivated, and I want you to understand something. That doesn't mean you're broken. It means you're going through a transition. And transitions are uncomfortable because you're not yet who you're going to be, but you're also not who you were before. It's a strange land, an uncomfortable space, a strange silence, but it can also become the place where your best self is born. Because the strongest people aren't born in easy times, they're forged in uncertainty, in chaos, in difficult questions, in the days when there are no clear answers, and yet they decide to keep moving forward, even if slowly, even if fearfully, even if confused. Because they understood something important. You don't need to have everything figured out to move forward. You just need to take the next step. One, just one. Sometimes we want complete clarity before taking action, but often clarity comes as we go along, not before. And in those moments when everything seems clouded, perhaps there's something deeper at work in silence, something you don't yet understand but that hasn't stopped supporting you, even when you feel like you can't go on anymore. Listen to this. You're not behind. You didn't arrive late, you didn't miss your chance, and life hasn't ended just because you feel lost today. In fact, the true beginning often looks exactly like this: confusing, uncomfortable, silent, difficult. So stop punishing yourself for not having all the answers. Breathe, learn, observe yourself, reassess, rebuild yourself. Because losing your way is sometimes exactly what you needed to finally find yourself. And remember this, You're not lost, you're just discovering a path you didn't know existed. Subscribe. Your mind needs daily training, not just a momentary boost of motivation.